and welcome to Minnesota Homeownership Center's Welcome Home podcast. My name is Bill Gray, and today we have two great guests sitting down to educate me, as well as our viewers and listeners, on what cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are doing in the area of affordable home ownership. Joining me are Dean Porter Nelson, Housing Finance Supervisor with the City of St. Paul. Welcome, Dean.
Thanks for having me.
Dean also sits on the Minnesota Homeownership Board. And then as well, we have Cherie Shoquist, Residential and Real Estate Development Manager with the City of Minneapolis. Welcome, Cherie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks. Cherie was hired by the city to replace our new executive director, Roxanne Young-Kimball, when she joined our team earlier this year. So that's exciting. And you told me before we started the show, you're a former board member of the center as well.
Yes, it was probably a while ago, but a great experience.
Very cool. I did not know that. All right. So this show is going to be something new for me, you guys. So work with me here. I don't have much knowledge at all on what the two of you do and positions like yours do. And so we'll see where this conversation takes us. But I know it'll be interesting and informative. I'm excited to dig in. And so, Cherie, let's start with you. Give us a quick idea of your professional background, and then tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your position with the City of Minneapolis day to day.
Great. So I'll try to be quick on my background, which is difficult each decade. I started out as a legal aid attorney in North Minneapolis.
Cool.
I was on the team of the Holman versus Cisneros lawsuit that was the largest housing discrimination lawsuit in the state. And so that really grounded me in racial equity and also in serving our residents and our most vulnerable residents in the city of Minneapolis. From there, I worked at Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. I chaired the Interagency Council to End Homelessness and really was instrumental in bringing supportive housing with a team of 250 stakeholders, bringing supportive housing to Minnesota and worked on the state plan to end homelessness, which then led to Heading Home Hennepin, Heading Home Ramsey. So I was very much involved in the services side, as much as you can be, not being at DHS, and bringing that to affordable rental housing. During the foreclosure crisis, a friend of mine from legal aid was the housing director. And he said, I don't get to be housing director. I'm foreclosure recovery director. So when they created a position for foreclosure recovery coordinator, I moved from Minnesota Housing closer to home, back into Minneapolis, closer to the neighborhoods, and was the city's foreclosure recovery coordinator, bringing in lots of federal resources, primarily for neighborhoods in North Minneapolis, South Central Minneapolis, parts of Northeast that were most impacted. And from there, I have done a mix of single family, multifamily housing development, and in community development, also some economic development projects. So I just recently rejoined the City of Minneapolis, as you mentioned, moved into Roxanne Young-Kimball's, our Homeownership Center executive director, moved into her position as manager on the residential real estate development, single family mostly, side of housing in the housing department at CPED. And it's really great to be back in Minneapolis.
That is a really well-rounded career trajectory there.
Yes. And as far as what I do on a day-to-day basis, just at this moment, trying to carry out all of the great projects that Roxanne and staff have going in the city. So it's great to be back.
And we'll definitely get into talking about those projects. So you must have worked with the center a lot during the foreclosure stuff, because I know that was probably the defining moment of Julie's tenure there as well.
Yes,
Julie Guggen, our former exec.
I think the City of St. Paul, the City of Minneapolis, and the Homeownership Center worked constantly together. We brought in the most federal funds.
And Dana Snell, right? She used to be.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that is correct. And, we had the Minnesota Homeownership Center was a leader in the Foreclosure Recovery Council, and really was the forefront on the prevention of foreclosures and the education and connecting homeowners facing foreclosure with the resources,
Right.
where the cities were on, we supported the prevention work and worked very closely with prevention and targeted funding there.
Yeah.
But then we were also focused on acquisition, rehab, and then if there had been vacant lots,
Right.
new construction, and then bringing back in the home ownership down payment assistance to
Yeah.
make those homes affordable.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot mix of everything.
Yeah. Well, that is very cool. Dean, same question. Quick summary of your professional background, and then what are you doing day to day in your position with City of St. Paul?
Definitely. So again, I'm Dean Porter Nelson, and I work for the City of St. Paul as a housing finance supervisor. And I lead a team that works on homeownership programs as well as rental preservation programs. So I actually have a mix of the two. And my experience prior to joining the City of St. Paul, I've worked in community development for about 10 years total. I went to the Humphrey School of Public Affairs and studied housing and community development under their urban planning program. And when I was in grad school, I did a number of internships, including one with the City of St. Paul working in PED. And I really liked local government. I knew it was something I wanted to do at some point. That's not actually what I did right after I finished grad school. After I finished grad school, I went and worked in Chicago for a national community development financial institution, Enterprise Community Partners, and really got that national experience working. I was working in our Chicago market and working on transit-oriented development and sustainability initiatives, trying to really aim to help local CDCs or community development groups integrate sustainability into their portfolio strategies, whether they owned single-family homes or whether they owned multifamily projects, to try to integrate sustainability, and then also to focus on promoting TOD in different areas along Chicago's rail lines. And that was just a really fascinating experience to be able to work with all of these different community development groups, provide TA to all these different types of organizations that have all these different things that they're doing, but have kind of common themes in their work. And I enjoyed that work a lot. And then after 3 years of working there in Chicago, my spouse and I decided to transition back to living in the Twin Cities again. And the first role that I ended up at was I actually worked for a local developer, Schaefer Richardson. I got a taste of development work and being on that side in the private sector. And then a job with actually the City of Minneapolis ended up coming up. And I went for that role because I had in the back of my mind, hey, I'd love to work in local government and really serve a city directly and work on programs and initiatives in a community. And so I ended up taking a role at the City of Minneapolis that was focused on the preservation of existing affordable rental housing and worked to get the city's 4D program off the ground, which is a affordable rental initiative, worked on a number of other things like the naturally occurring affordable housing preservation fund that the city has, worked on some projects with a co-op group that was trying to acquire some properties in the Corcoran neighborhood. And so had some overlap and connection with Roxanne, actually. Worked quite a bit on that homeownership stuff with her, and worked on a number of other policies and proposals that were going through the city during that time. And then after 5 years of working for the City of Minneapolis, a opportunity came up with the City of St. Paul to work as a housing finance supervisor and to be actually in a brand new role. The city didn't have supervisors before. All of the project managers reported to the housing director, and just given all of the needs and challenges that both cities are working to address in housing and all the great programs they have, the city took this opportunity to add 2 manager positions, supervisor positions. And the one that I took, as I was saying earlier, focuses both on the homeownership programs as well as some of these rental preservation programs. We are in a homeownership podcast today, so I'm really going to focus on the homeownership programs both that I do as well as a couple of other colleagues work on today. So really, again, excited to be on this podcast.
That is, well, thank you, Dean. I think it's so interesting that affordable home ownership or housing or whatever you want to call it is such a small universe. We all kind of know each other
Yeah.
here, but yet you guys are so well rounded in experience wise. I mean, I think we're really lucky. And I mean, I look at even somebody like Roxanne and some of the other people we were talking about. I mean, there are smart people in this region that know a lot and have seen a lot and are trying to do a lot. So we're lucky. We're lucky to have you guys. All right, let's talk initiatives. Dean, let's stay with you. Um, you can answer this however you can go in whatever direction you want to go, because like I said, I don't know very much here about what you guys do. So I wrote down here, what's exciting you about your job and the opportunities you see coming down the pike in the coming year or two, and also, you know, when it makes sense, how can the center help you support that work, because like you said, we work with you guys both on a regular basis. What do you say, Dean?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to start out with why are we doing this work, and then talk about why it's exciting. And the reason that the City of St. Paul invests in homeownership initiatives is really because homeownership can be difficult to access for low and moderate income households. And we have things like high interest rates, shortage of inventory, increases in home values that are making that even more challenging in our current moment.
Well, the thing that I always remember is, I mean, you're sitting there paying full freight rent. You could pay a mortgage, but like you say, it's the barrier of the down payment,
that's right.
the mental getting your head around it. That's too much for me. I don't know. But go ahead.
Yeah. And so I think kind of along the lines of what you're getting at, Bill, is that we know that homeownership can be difficult to access. We know there are some barriers, but we also know that it is achievable. And we're doing this work to address racial gaps and disparities in homeownership that exist both statewide as well as in both cities, and also to really make sure that folks have that opportunity to get into homeownership,
right?
Even if you are a more lower moderate income individual,
right?
And so along those lines, I'm excited about the work because we get to address those challenges and we get to do something positive in the face of, you know, adversity in many ways. And St. Paul is a community of choice for a lot of households. You know, people want to live here in the city of St. Paul, and we have programs like our down payment assistance program, our home rehab program, and our small scale development initiative to develop on city lots. And I'm really excited in 2025 about just continuing to chip away at that homeownership gap using all of those initiatives. We do have a proposal from the mayor's office has proposed expanding our inheritance fund. The inheritance fund currently focuses on ensuring that folks who were historically impacted by the construction of Interstate 94 have access to a higher level of down payment assistance, so they can have even more chance at buying a home, and then in addition to that, have access to additional home rehab assistance if they already own a home. And we are looking, there's a proposal to expand the inheritance fund, so I'm excited about continuing work on efforts to do that and to focus potentially on the west side community in addition to the I-94 impacted community.
Let me ask you a specific question, because I have to say, so our offices are located in the heart of the east side, Payne and Jenks. And there are so many single family houses all over that neighborhood that you know, a lot of them aren't in the best of shape. Your repair and rehab programs, that I feel like that is such an important piece. Tell me how that works. This is usually low interest loans and stuff, right? Or how does this work?
Great question. So the way that the home rehab programs as well as the down payment assistance programs work is they're both a forgivable loan. It's a 0% interest loan, so there's no payments on it, and then it is forgivable after 15 years. And so if you stay in your home for a full 15 years, then it would be fully forgivable. If you did decide to move it at some point, then you would just pay back a portion of the loan at that point in time.
And a lot of times these are households where the house is paid for, or maybe I'll just say this is the angle I'm taking, right? The situation where the house is paid for, you're retired, you're maybe a single individual living there, and you're paying taxes, you're on a fixed income retirement, and you need a new roof or you need a new furnace, or these things come up, and and along with all that, you're not able to kind of keep up with the upkeep and stuff. This is a city problem as well as a person who lives there problem. You don't want to have your housing stock kind of deteriorating to the point where it's not going to be useful to anybody. I just feel like that's such a important piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't get. This is Bill Gray talking here. It doesn't get the attention it should. I mean, I think that's really important. So
that's exactly right. We've got great initiatives to build new housing, and those are really exciting. But then at the same time, we need to have programs like the home rehab program in St. Paul, and we served 60 households since the beginning of 2023 with home rehab assistance to try to improve and repair their own homes.
Yeah,
they got a forgivable loan to do that, and so it's really important work for the city.
I guess the point I like to make is it's not just the homeowner winning here; it's everybody winning when we take the initiative to make these programs available. Cherie, let's do this again. Great question. What's exciting for you, and how is the center maybe involved or can be involved?
Thanks, Bill. So yes, we really value our partnership with the Homeownership Center in the City of Minneapolis. And it's a historic partnership. And I do think that is one of, you mentioned earlier, the expertise, commitment, and creativity of people in the affordable housing profession in the metro area. In addition to that, our collaboration and how we've built these partnerships that where we have common goals and work together to achieve them is something that I very much value as well, professionally and personally. It's great to be a part of this housing community in the metro area. What we are prioritizing in the city of Minneapolis are two main things. One is advancing racial equity and eliminating racial disparities in home ownership. And the first step is, can we have a measurable outcome of decreasing the racial disparity of home ownership in Minneapolis? And that's something that Roxanne has been measuring.
Kind of the holy grail.
Yeah, and really working towards. And so that is something that drives us all. And on the same front, to expand opportunity. We want to disrupt historical geographic patterns of racial segregation, like you're doing with the initiative in St. Paul, and wealth extraction. And through the foreclosure crisis and before, disinvestment in Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities that provide limited fair housing choice and opportunity. So our programs are about choice and opportunity. People choose to live in St. Paul. People choose to live in Minneapolis. And those are in addition to our other goals of preventing involuntary displacement, prioritizing our resources to invest in households facing the most severe housing instability, and then also develop sustainability. Part of Jean's background as well as promoting energy efficient and healthy homes is also part of our core values. We have three types of home ownership programs. One falls under access. And so that's providing down payment assistance and access to home ownership. Stabilization, and that's working to create new home ownership opportunities that are stable for households of, moderate, low, and very low income. And then also sustain, which is more of the rehab programs, as very similar to what you and Dean were discussing.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm most excited about in the coming year is there have been a lot of additional resources in the housing market. Um, you know, a we're still working through our pipeline, our development pipeline, and our rehab pipeline, and just the volume of activity that we're doing in both cities for both. Rehabbing existing homes, creating new homes, and providing homeownership opportunity through down payment assistance continues to grow exponentially. And while we're serving homeowners and home buyers, we're also expanding and building the development side, and have both cities have been thoughtfully and proactively working with emerging and Black, Indigenous, and people of color developers.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm also very inspired and excited
Yeah.
by building and strengthening those partnerships and
Yeah.
professional relationships.
Very cool. You remind me, and it's a St. Paul example actually, of these big opportunities that come by every once in a while, maybe less. And I'm thinking of the what is it, the golf golf
so
course
we've
development?
got the Heights.
Yeah, the Heights. Yeah,
and that's 147 homeownership opportunities that are going to be part of this larger development that will include. It's supposed to be around 1,000 units of housing, and so it's a huge redevelopment opportunity, and that's going to include a mix of townhomes and fourplexes as well as single family homes. So that's 147 new homes being developed by Habitat for Humanity, and that's just going to be a huge opportunity for additional homeownership opportunities for low and moderate income households.
Former golf course. And then Cherie, now I'm thinking, was the Ford plant in Minneapolis, or is that not?
That's in St. Paul.
That's in St. Paul too. So so you guys
really
have done this before.
Yep.
Okay. St. Paul is so it's
we're the Twin Cities.
Exactly. You're in St. Paul until you're not.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I always try to help people remember is all of this work is so valuable, not just to the people benefiting from it, but from the whole community. And the example that I point to is the federal government has come up with a statistic on community wealth preserved for every foreclosure prevented, right? And we talked about our work together during the foreclosure crisis. Every year we do our analysis of our impact on the community. This year, 2023, I guess, we passed 40,000 in the number of foreclosures that our advisors have helped to prevent since 2008. 40,000 foreclosures. That money figure that the government puts out is that it says $80,000 in community wealth is preserved for every one foreclosure that's prevented. That's $3.2 billion in community wealth that's been saved. And that includes not only, for the homeowners who kept their homes and the banks who got to keep their loans. It also includes, your tax base. And you guys know this, your tax base, your neighboring property values, your second generation living in that house, what kind of generational wealth is there going to be created now because of this. So it's such a big deal, and it's so important to everybody. It's just good work, and certainly the need for it is not going anywhere. The need is still very, very strong. All right, I have one more question on my list for you guys. I'm looking for what do you guys see as the biggest challenge facing your city in your area of expertise in coming years? And Cherie, we can go with you first.
Well, before I answer your question, I'd like to add a little bit to what you were talking about, the wealth building and value retention in neighborhoods. Our experience during the foreclosure crisis, especially in North Minneapolis and South Central that were hardest hit by the foreclosures, was that, taking it back to the community, the neighborhood, in addition to the homeowner, on the homeowner's point of view, you know, the home is the stability, right?
Right.
Which impacts employment,
Mhm.
education, you know, kids in school, having to move schools, health and healthcare,
Mhm.
and a myriad of other things. You know, the significant loss in population impacts local businesses.
Right.
And so it's, however, what we found in Minneapolis during the foreclosure crisis and after, when we created a program called Green Homes North, is by investing in neighborhoods and bringing the value of one home up on a block,
Mhm.
and then being able to sell that home for that increased value would raise the values and provide comps
Right.
or
The
you know,
comps,
the
yep.
comps for other homes. And so while we maybe have assisted, you know, one or two homes
Really good point.
on a block, it benefited the
Yeah.
entire neighboring
Yeah.
community. And you know, some of the green home, we only, you know, we did a little over 100 homes in over 5 years, but they were new construction, significantly increased home values. And at the end of that, there was a big development along Humboldt Greenway in North Minneapolis, closer to the border of the city, where homes were selling back then for $345,000 to $390,000 that never would have been mortgageable.
Right.
If we hadn't done that work during the foreclosure crisis and after.
Right.
And so it was building
You're building the foundation.
building
Right.
that foundation. And so we continue to do that. But I just wanted to emphasize the point with your excellent, and like, hooray for all preventing all those foreclosures, and that billions of dollars in real money and economic impact,
Mhm.
but also the impact on the employment, education, health, and safety of those individual families.
No, I love it.
And so back to the real question.
Big challenge.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is always resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Always resources. Where can we find funding?
Mhm.
Where is available, developable land?
Mhm.
And so that is always the answer to that question. I do think, and this is something that I'm so excited about Roxanne's leadership at the Homeownership Center, is we've been doing this work. I mean, I've been doing this work for decades, Dean, a long time, but you know, in Minnesota, we have so many great best practices. We have so many states that are looking to us, like, how do we find solutions? What direction are we headed? And, you know, we've done a lot of work on that. But I think we all know that in order to change the racial disparity gap in homeownership, in order to provide access to affordable housing, whether it's homeownership or rental,
Right.
in order to better serve our unsheltered populations in Minneapolis and St. Paul, that we need to identify new and different ways to resource affordable housing development. And I think we've had some conversations. I was involved in subcommittees of the Homeownership Center board where we were looking at different ways to fund down payment assistance
Mhm.
and new ways to provide access to existing resources. So the government can and does very well at serving people with the resources that we have. But if we're truly going to solve these problems, we need to bring more people into the
Right.
table and create and develop new points of access.
Yeah, so foundations, developers,
Yeah.
all these things. No, that's really good,
Mhm.
really good point. Dean, biggest challenge you see
Sure.
on the horizon?
So I would echo what I brought up earlier around the racial homeownership gap is a huge challenge, and that I would say honestly the same thing. It's resources. You know, we're doing things in St. Paul around down payment assistance. We served 40 households since early 2023 with down payment assistance, 60 households with home rehab assistance. We've built over 300 housing units through our small scale development on city and HRA owned lots over the past decade. We've got big projects like the Heights going.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have a big disparity, a big gap in homeownership, when our Black homeownership rate in the state is 29%, in St. Paul it's around 18%, compared to, you know, the statewide white homeownership rate being 77%, and St. Paul's around 60%.
Mm-hmm.
There's the gap both at the state and in the city of St. Paul, as well as the city of Minneapolis. And when we look at the number of units we're doing, it's really, really significant. Yeah. It's extremely meaningful. We are working towards closing that gap, but even more resources coming in is the only way that we're going to get there.
And that gap was created deliberately. I mean, whether people knew that that's what was going to happen or not, you built a freeway through Rondo and bought those homes up in the 1950s for like nothing. And then, you know, now home ownership is down by that much percent, and that just goes on into the future until you do something about it.
And similarly in Minneapolis, 94 went through, and
same thing.
And it's, you know, like St. Paul, we've prioritized serving Black, Indigenous, and people of color homebuyers. And our Minneapolis Homes program have performed the past several years at a level where we have about 75% of our home ownership going to BIPOC home buyers, and about 20, little under 25% white. Of those, about 48% are Black. And then, you know, we're serving other home buyers of color as well. And we just need to keep doing the good work, and keep prioritizing racial equity in home ownership and expanded opportunity and choice.
Yep, very good.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we have really similar statistics. In St. Paul, we had, for the down payment assistance program since 2023, it was 76% households of color, and then the home rehab program was 58% households of color. So it's very similar to.
And the bottom line is these programs are open to anybody. It's not like it's restricted. The fact that that's who we're reaching means that we're reaching the people that need the help the most. So this has been really educational. I appreciate it. I know you guys both have very busy schedules, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. If you're interested in exploring home ownership for your own household, you can take a home buying class and enlist the help of a home ownership advisor for free by going to our website, hocmn.org. Our advisors and educators are embedded in organizations across the state, and they'll work with you to help get you mortgage ready, educate you on the buying process from A to Z, and walk with you through every step of the process. In closing, as always, I want to acknowledge our sponsors: Associated Bank, Bell Bank, Bremer Bank, Huntington Bank, Midwest One Bank, and Old National Bank. Our sincere thanks to each of these organizations for their support. Thanks, and see you next time.